Alright, UFC 318 just wrapped up and these were my picks. Bad day at the office. Let's get into it. To be fair, majority of my picks for the main card were all fighters that were coming into their fights as favorites. I know some betting men that are going to be very happy this weekend. As I said leading up to this weekend, this card didn't really look too good. The matchups themselves, there was no real storylines to them and it kind of just felt like they were thrown together last minute. That being said, a lot of these fights did deliver in the actual octagon and we got some pretty decent scraps. I went 0-5 on the main card. You know what? I'm going to really make an effort to get better at these predictions. Imagine someone's just taking my advice and betting the house on my picks. Kicking off the main event, we had Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber. Obviously, I went against Michael Johnson just strictly because of the age difference, and I feel like the reach advantage that Zellhuber had would have gave Michael Johnson a lot of problems. But it was the complete opposite. Johnson came out really high-paced and high volume. He's always had a speed advantage against his opponents, but it was really evident in this fight. Early on in the fight, Zellhuber was doing a great job using that right body kick to Michael Johnson's left arm, which is his power hand because he's a southpaw. It was pretty obvious that his game plan was to try to keep Michael Johnson's left hand glued to his body so that he wouldn't throw it as much. And it was really effective. You know, those first couple of minutes of round one, I was like, wow, good game plan. But then as the time went on, all he was doing was spamming that right body kick. I feel like for something like that to be effective, you have to mix up your attacks, go low, go body, and then go to the head. But he was just sticking that thing to the body. I started to feel like Michael Johnson was starting to slow down in that second round because of how high volume he came out in that first round. But even when Michael Johnson was slowing down, Daniel Zellhuber, he didn't do anything. Obviously, Johnson got that knockdown in round 2, and I feel like that really set the pace for the rest of the fight, and Zellhuber really had no answer for Michael Johnson's boxing. Like I said, he came out with a good game plan, but he was too one-dimensional. And bro, I was getting so annoyed because Zellhuber just kept throwing these spinning leg kicks when Michael Johnson was very clearly out of range, and I feel like it was just aura farming because he knew he was losing the fight. And then after 3 rounds of him just doing nothing except for body kicks, when they're reading out the scorecards, Daniel Zellhuber is acting like he somehow has a chance of winning this fight. It was very clear that Michael Johnson dominated this fight, so I don't know what bro was doing. Fingers crossed that he won. Next up, we had Dan Ige versus Pitbull. This was an absolute snoozer. I fell asleep halfway through this fight. I picked Dan Ige to win this fight by KO or TKO. Oh boy, I could not have been more wrong. I think this is up there for one of the most boring fights of the year. It was such a weird fight, and I feel like this is the way that Pitbull always fights. It's like 13 minutes of complete boring, just staring at each other, and then there's like 2 minutes of actually decent action, and it kind of makes the fans just forget how boring this fight actually was. Also, when the fight started, looking at these two guys, they look like straight clones of each other. I kept losing which one was Dan Ige. I can't even put the fact that, you know, this fight was boring on Dan Ige because he gave us a lot of exciting performances. I feel like Pitbull was just so hesitant to engage or really do anything, and he did the same against Yair Rodriguez. It's like they were both just standing at range, you know, waiting for the other to initiate the kiss. And it was really weird because Dan Ige did not seem like his usual self. Usually he's willing to take more risks, and I think the main issue here was Dan Ige usually relies on a lot of counter attacks, and because Pitbull was not engaging at all, there was nothing to throw. But then yeah, we get to the 3rd round and Dan Ige is clearly down on the scorecards and he has no sense of urgency. Even after he caught Pitbull with a nice head kick, he didn't follow up. There was no like sense of urgency to try and get a knockout or a finish. And bro, this freaking coach, Pitbull's coach right here in the left corner, so annoying. I don't know what it is about this guy. He just really grinds my gears. And now we go on to what, for me at least, was the fight of the night. Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. This was such a fun fight, man. Complete brawl and just like a lot of tides turning during this fight. Kevin Holland has 0 head movement. He got rocked by Daniel Rodriguez. And it was so crazy because everyone thought he was out. Like even the commentators, before the fight's even close to being finished, they are acting like the fight's done. Going into this fight, I picked Kevin Holland to win by submission or a late round TKO. I really think Kevin Holland should have shot earlier for the takedowns, you know, and mixed it up a lot earlier in the fight because I think after he got rocked, that's when he started shooting. But I think he needed to make D-Rod guess a lot earlier in the fight. And I feel like after Holland got rocked, his reaction time was like, and just as you think D-Rod's dominating this fight, Kevin Holland somehow comes back later in the fight and almost finishes Daniel Rodriguez. It was insane, man. I thought he was out. When Kevin Holland landed that uppercut, again, DC was acting like the fight was done. As a viewer, you trust the commentators, and I thought the fight was legit stopped. Kevin Holland threw up a couple submission attempts, and again, Daniel Cormier, I like him as a commentator, but sometimes he just gets too eager. A lot of the submission attempts were not even close to being finished, and DC's out there acting like his prime Khabib. But yeah, yeah, congrats to D-Rod, and yeah, 0-3 for me. The co-main event, Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. This was surprisingly actually a really enjoyable and decent fight. I expected this to be a one-side domination, and again, I picked Roman Kopylov to win this by TKO strictly because of Paulo Costa's inactivity, and I feel like he has a bad gas tank, which he shocked me and surprised me. Going into this fight though, it didn't really feel like this was the co-main event. It felt like this was maybe like, you know, kicking off the main event. It didn't feel like a co-main event fight, if that makes sense. As the fight started, Costa just sprinted at Roman Kopylov, and I was worried. I thought maybe he would burn out his entire cardio just in that little sprint. Early on into the fight, they weren't throwing very much volume, but it felt like the fight was on 2x speed, like when you put a video on 2x speed, because they were feigning like really sporadically and like doing all these weird movements, but not actually throwing anything. But the first one was a great round for Paulo Costa. I think this really set the tone for the fight. He landed a couple big shots that I think made Roman Kopylov pretty hesitant to really engage, and those body kicks that Paulo Costa was landing, beautiful. This is what I expected Daniel Zellhuber to do in his fight, you know, to mix up the attacks, not just throw the body kicks. I also found it very funny. We saw Paulo Costa fixing his hair in between rounds, getting ready for the photo shoot. And as I predicted leading up to this fight, Paulo Costa was mouth breathing by round 2. He's a weird guy because during this fight, he looks like he gets very tired, but then will randomly just explode. Pause. And again, round 2 was more of the same that we saw in that first round. Just great body kicks by Paulo Costa, mixing up the attacks, and he even rocked Roman Kopylov in that second round. I think he felt Paulo Costa's power and, just like I said, did not want to engage at all. As round 3 started, I thought Roman Kopylov was going to throw the kitchen sink at Paulo Costa and just have this sense of urgency, but again, he didn't really. He did throw more in the third round, but even at times when he would back up Paulo Costa to the cage, he just wouldn't capitalize on it. And I feel like that's the moment where Paulo Costa is his most vulnerable, when he's backed up against the cage, just kind of shelling up. All in all, very good performance by Paulo Costa, very dominant, and I'm excited to see where he goes next, to be honest. Moving on to the main event of the evening, Max Holloway versus Dustin the Diamond Poirier. I was shining bright like a diamond watching this fight. I picked Dustin Poirier to win this fight by TKO in those later rounds. 0-5, man. I actually got really emotional watching his walkout. I think, you know, just knowing this is his last fight, and, you know, he always puts on exciting fights. As I predicted, Max Holloway came out very kick heavy. Similar game plan that he had against Ilia Topuria, attacking the leg, attacking the body, and going up high. We did see Dustin Poirier get KO'd by Justin Gaethje with a head kick. I don't know how. Max Holloway looked really sharp and really crisp. I would even go out to say that this is one of the best performances that he's put on. I can admit that, you know, I really have underestimated Max Holloway's power. I've seen a lot of people debate whether it was Dustin Poirier's chin or Max Holloway's power that has actually just gotten better and moving up to lightweight, and I really think it's the move to lightweight that made all the difference. We saw him knock out Justin Gaethje, and again, he rocked Dustin Poirier a couple times in this fight. We saw Max Holloway knock down Dustin Poirier in that first round, and I was in complete shock because usually Dustin Poirier is extremely durable, but as expected, Dustin Poirier recovered really well. The fight got back up standing, and I even saw someone say that Max Holloway went easy on Dustin. This was an insane round 2. I feel like Max Holloway really dominated that first and second round. He was really mixing up his attacks and just throwing crazy combos. I feel like Dustin Poirier's lack of head movement really was a downfall in this fight for him. He kept getting caught by those straight punches from Max, but he does have a really good high guard, but I feel like it's not as effective against straight punches as it is against hooks. I think it was in the second round when Max Holloway knocked down Dustin Poirier again, and he really just emptied out the gas tank, because when they both stood back up, Max Holloway looked extremely tired, and I genuinely thought that this is where Dustin Poirier could capitalize and really try to sting Max. And then yeah, Poirier rallied back and landed a clean shot and rocked Max, and the arena absolutely exploded. Even watching it through my laptop, I could hear the fans screaming. Again, the main thing about Dustin is he tends to get more dangerous as the fight goes on, so going into the 4th and 5th round, he had a lot more success, and for whatever reason, Max stopped throwing the body kicks that were, you know, really successful for him early on, maybe because it was using too much energy, but because he stopped throwing those kicks, Dustin was able to close the distance a lot more and land a lot more combos on him. And then we get to the last 10 seconds of the fight. They both agree to throw down in the center of the octagon. They did the thing, but then Max Holloway starts clipping Dustin, and Dustin goes for the clinch. Smart move, my dog. All in all, this was a great main event. You know, who would expect any less from two absolute legends? It was sad knowing that this was Dustin's last fight, but I think, to be honest, he's had an amazing career, and this was the perfect fight and perfect send-off for him. Let me know what you guys thought of this card. How are your predictions? Did you get them all wrong like me? Make sure you guys drop a like and make sure to subscribe. Thank you guys for 100 subscribers, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.